Joining us now, a man who, he's challenging this in federal court and has been at the forefront of leading the fight for immigration enforcement to protect the American worker, our infrastructure, public schools, healthcare system, the integrity of our Constitution, our sovereignty. Greg Abbott, of course, the new governor of Texas. I was just in Midland, Texas yesterday on an oil fracking site and learned a lot about how we are extracting energy from the Midland area, and it was fascinating. I got an education beyond anything I could have imagined yesterday. It was amazing. And Governor Abbott joins us now. Governor, great to talk to you, my friend. How are you?
I am doing fabulous. I am so glad that you were in Texas, and you know that you are welcome back anytime.
Thank you, sir. And I'm going to talk to you more about what I saw and what I think more Americans have to be aware of when it comes to the energy boom and what's required and how important it is, not just for our economic security, but for our national security. And I want to talk to you at length about that. And your name was referenced many times, all positively, yesterday in Midland, Texas. People are very happy that you're the new governor. But let's talk about where we are now in this immigration fight. I mean, the media has the sob stories, the immigration sob stories are being trotted out everywhere in newspapers. Even 17 magazine, the young teen magazine, has a big push for amnesty. Of course, they always cite the positive stories, which is like the valedictorian about to be deported, but they never talk about the other issues. Where are we now? Where are you now in this lawsuit challenging the president's amnesty?
Well, among stories, there was another story yesterday that was reported about a dreamer who was here in the state of Texas in Laredo, who was arrested because he tried to sexually assault a young teen. And it's something that we see over and over again. There are sob stories about Americans who are harmed physically, sometimes losing their lives because of these people who are in this country illegally. And these are people who are coming from across the entire globe. You talked about the problem earlier, about the magnitude of the problem. And there is a reason for that. And you raised a valid question. Who voted for this? And I'll tell you who voted for it. No one voted for it, not the general public and not the United States Congress. There's only one person who voted for this, and that is Barack Obama, which is why we sued Barack Obama. If you recall, Barack Obama said 22 times he did not have the legal authority to change the immigration law until after the most recent election, in which case he issued that executive order changing the immigration law. And what he said during that press conference is, I just changed the law. We have gotten away from a nation based upon the rule of law, and we've become a nation based upon the rule of one man, and that one man is trampling the Constitution, which is why I brought that lawsuit challenging him.
So the Fifth Circuit's now, of course, reviewing the DACA and the DAPA executive amnesty regulations that have been just basically promulgated sua sponte by this president. But we also have Republicans who have a hand in this as well, not doing what they could have done to stop this in its tracks with its funding mechanism. Everyone got scared and we backed off from the funding. No one's want to touch. Oh, we can't shut down the government. We can't. You could shut down the president's executive amnesty. They didn't want to do that either. So, Ted Cruz, he talks a good game on this, and he's been pretty good on this. But we have a handful of Republicans. Obama's gone in 18 months, basically. So we got a handful of Republicans who've actually stood up for the American people and the American worker. I'd say two of them are in Texas. You, Cruz, and we got, of course, Dan Patrick, got Jeff Sessions, Grassley, and a few others, but not many. Louis Gohmert, maybe. But where these Republicans are making me sick. I think they voted for this because they took a lot of money from big corporations that love this cheap labor, Greg. Governor, sorry, I've known you for so long. But they love this cheap labor. Labor keeps pouring in across the border. And as I understand it from my sources at the border, coming across the border today in droves. What can you tell us about what's happening right now on your state's border?
First, I agree this is bipartisan negligence. They're simply doing nothing about it. The problems on the border continue. If you recall, this time last year, we were having close to 1,000 people a day coming across the border. And the TV cameras were down there and the spotlight was on it. And then when the TV cameras left, I think a lot of people thought that the problem about people crossing the border dissipated, and it has not. Currently, there are still more than 10,000 people coming across the border each and every month unauthorized. And again, we are seeing an explosion of people who are coming here from countries other than Mexico, and an increase in the number of people coming from what are called countries of interest. These are countries where that have ties to terrorism. And we have very serious problems on the border, which is why I am working on a package where Texas is going to step up and do what the federal government has failed to do. We're going to increase our border security. We're going to add close to $1 billion in funding from state dollars so that we will secure our border. Remember this one last fact, Laura, and that is these people don't just mysteriously show up. They show up because they are paying a heavy price to the drug cartels who are bringing them here. Our goal is to put the drug cartels out of business, make them lose money in trying to bring people here in their smuggling and trafficking operations, and make them take their business elsewhere.
One thing that we've seen is that presidential candidates, a lot of your fellow governors and current senators, it's very interesting to see how they're reacting to all of this, right? And the cameras are on. We're all for immigration enforcement, right? Then behind closed doors, when you're meeting with big donors, you're promising sweeping immigration reform, which will mean fast-tracking work visas, fast-tracking what big business wants to these new people coming in for cheaper wages, and giving mass amnesty to the people who are already here. There's a big piece today in BuzzFeed. Marco Rubio rakes in donor money by touting immigration record behind closed doors, mentioning Norman Brahman, who's an auto tycoon who's reported to pledge to spend as much as $10 million to get Rubio elected, in part because of Rubio's big push for this comprehensive immigration reform. What is your reaction to the push by people like Rubio on this issue?
You mentioned earlier about the trip that Scott Walker took down here. My reaction and my goal is I am trying to get all of the presidential candidates to come to Texas. Heck, I'll even give a tour to Hillary Clinton. I want every single one of them to know and see firsthand what is going on. We take them up in the air. We take them on the ground. We take them on the river. We show before their very eyes these people who are coming across the border unauthorized. We see how their own laws and their own sovereignty are being violated. And so our goal is to help all of these candidates understand what is really taking place on the ground, and my demand as the governor of Texas that they step up and fix this problem. I am going to be working as strongly as I can to oppose anybody who is not going to first secure our border, and I'm going to strongly advocate the necessity that whoever is elected president step up and do the fundamental job of the federal government, which is to protect our sovereignty.
Well, a lot of people will say, well, of course we're going to do border enforcement. But as Marco Rubio said, we have to modernize our immigration. We have to modernize that. That's a code word for fast-tracking foreign workers into the country and eventually legalizing people who are here illegally. That's what it's about. So everything will happen concurrently or one step very quickly after another. And it's not like they're going to ever deport people who are here illegally. In fact, Marco Rubio said the other day that it's not feasible to toss DACA out the window because people are already benefiting from it. What's your reaction to that? We can't end DACA because people are benefiting from it.
Couple of things. One, first of all, that's why we filed that lawsuit, because we knew the attitude prevailed that once people get onto DACA or whatever, then they will. It'll be more difficult to remove them, and that's why we filed that lawsuit against the president, saying his executive order was illegal, so that people would never begin to even go down the process of this DACA pathway. But the second thing is, people say, well, gosh, there's no way to remove 11 million people. Well, guess what? that number is outdated. It's way more than 11 million people now because of all the additional people who've been coming in. So that heightens the key point, and that is the first thing that has to be done is you have to get control of your border. Until you get control of your border, you're going to continue to have people come in, and the problem's going to grow worse. And so any presidential candidate has to first articulate that the first thing they will do is to secure our border and make sure that we...
But, Governor, doesn't that have to happen over a number of years where it's verifiably shut down? Not in five months. We're going to say, oh, it's closed. Give us amnesty. That's what's going to happen. They're going to say, oh, well, a few of the border governors say it's better, so now we have to move on to immigration reform. That's what they're going to do. I say it has to be shut down we have to take a pause on this immigration stuff for like 7 years. And then allow people to say, okay, now the people who are truly law-abiding, who are truly, in the system, we can prove they've been in for the amount of time, then we can consider them in due course. But until we got a verifiable, long-standing track record, I don't believe these people. They have no credibility. I mean, you do, but none of these federal people have credibility.
Well, first, I'll tell you that if the resources are put into place, and we know what they are. We as a state have identified them, and the feds surely are qualified enough to identify them also. We know exactly what can be done, has to be done, and that will secure our border. And so achieving security can be pretty high. But secondly, you do raise another issue that will take a little while to work itself out. I think the information came from ICE here a few weeks ago, showing the number of criminals that ICE had let loose in the United States, including murderers.
This is why there's no credibility. There's no credibility here. They won't deport murderers, let alone people who've crossed the border and need to be turned back. So there's no credibility. This is what I'm saying. The American worker, nobody talks about the American worker. They're being hammered across the board in the middle class. And all they keep being told, Governor, is, oh, well, you have to worry about the families and the family unification and this and that. No. How about the American workers? The American Constitution? What about that? I mean, do any of these Republican candidates, where do they start with that? From Jeb to Marco to all these people. American people and American legal immigrants first and foremost. The people who violated our laws should not be in this country, period. They should not be here. And I'm fed up. And you can tell I'm fed up on this because I think very few people speak the truth about this issue. By the way, there's a picture of Marco Rubio touring the U.S.-Mexico border on his website, which I just pulled up. So apparently he has been on the U.S.-Mexico border. But you're saying you would be happy to give him another tour to help educate him? The pictures he has was not on a tour with me. But I will give any presidential candidate a tour of the border to emphasize the problems that we have, what must be done, and that if they expect to get any support from the people of the state of Texas, at least as it's heard from me, they're going to have to step up and do what their predecessors have failed to do. They have to secure our border. Greg Abbott, governor of the great state of Texas, thank you very much. We wish you all the best. Stay in touch with us. We'll take a break. Don't go away.
The Laura Ingraham Show.